How do I start off a video talking about TV intros? I could just start off with the video immediately. Nah, that's too direct. Maybe, I don't know, a cool edit or something, like a montage or... Wait. No. Yeah, this video is getting copyright clean, bro. Opening sequences are vital elements of a TV show. You could say that they're a part of what makes them so memorable and iconic. I mean, just think about how many TV shows have you watched where you instantly think about its intro when somebody mentions it. It may seem something which you might gloss over its importance at first, but when you start pondering about it, you'll come to realize how essential these sequences are. And the thing that got me fired up about this whole topic is actually the Peacemaker intro, which I opened this video up with. Recently, I've been reflecting a lot on Peacemaker, especially since its second season has just finished airing a couple weeks ago.
You are one curmudgeonly motherfucker, Ginger Cool. Ah! What the f—
And I gotta say, the aspect which hit me the most this season was actually the opening sequence. I mean, I literally haven't stopped thinking about it even after it's ended. Like seriously, I've been watching it over and over again and listening to the song pretty much every single day. There's just this great balance between the music, the lighting, the deadpan awkward dancing, which all together makes the intro itself a great reflection into the season itself, with it being a more personal stakes kind of story. And initially, this video is just gonna be an analysis on the Peacemaker intros, but the more I delved into it, the more I found myself going down an entire rabbit hole into analyzing about what makes TV intros so great. And somewhere along the way, I found out the impact that famous skip button has had on these sequences. But first, before we delve deep into that, I think it's important to realize these intros' entire If you look at it from a surface level point of view, you might just look at TV intros and think they're just skippable fodder. A way to pad out an episode's length so it satisfies the studio's required runtime. But there is actually so much more which goes into an opening sequence than you might expect. Because an intro can not only serve as a way to introduce a show, but more often than not, they are crucial to the show's narrative and enhance the overall quality. For example, some great intros can provide background information about certain characters, mainly the protagonist. Shows like The Sopranos, Dexter, and even Avatar: The Last Airbender all have these types of intros. Now, it's not controversial to say that The Sopranos has one of the most iconic intros of all time. I mean, watching it for the first time in the pilot episode is such a perfect way to introduce the viewer to the world of The Sopranos, as well as giving insight to the character of Tony Soprano himself. And the intro itself is basically a montage of Tony just traveling in his car. We see iconic shots of the New York City skyline as he approaches the New Jersey Turnpike. And once he crosses it, we see a noticeable shift in scenery, going from the high-rises and skyscrapers in New York City to the more low-rise buildings of New Jersey, as we're shown landmarks such as Satriale's and Tony's house. And upon starting the show, you might think that this is just like a cool sequence which introduces the setting and the protagonist. From it, we learn that New York and New Jersey are the two prominent places that the show takes place in. And it also gives us information about where Tony lives, where he lives in a nice suburban house in the Garden State. But the more you watch the show, then see what Tony gets himself involved in and what he does in his daily life, this intro ends up having quite a dark and twisted turn. The more and more you watch this intro, the more you realize that this might just be Tony's average day, where he's coming home from New York after a whole night of doing God knows what. And it could be anything: gambling, loan sharking, meeting up with the New York families, or even just straight up murder.
Don't do it!
And this intro gives just the right amount to make you think about all this stuff. And it's stuff like this which makes the opening sequence enhance the overall quality of the show, especially after watching it again and again after every single episode. You're constantly reminded of the implications of Tony's journey back home.
What's it take to get some fucking smoked turkey in this house, huh?
What?
I bust my ass all day long. When I come home, I want a little smoked turkey. Is that too fucking much to ask?
What the fuck is your problem?
Dexter's intro, in my opinion, is as brilliant as The Sopranos. It's similar in premise in that we see a part of Dexter's daily life, that being his morning routine. It's basically a montage of different shots of a typical morning that Dexter follows, which is actually similar to what a lot of people's mornings look like. Waking up, getting dressed, making coffee, having breakfast, and then heading out for the day. But what's so special about this intro in particular is the way that this whole thing is shot and directed. We see a lot of close-up shots to these morning activities, which are made in a way to give an underlying sinister nature to them, such as the way the meat is being cut or how an orange is being sliced, which gives off kind of a sense of desperation in the way that they are being cut open. There's also a consistent theme of blood or things which are made to look like blood, such as when Dexter cuts himself while shaving and ketchup being spread like drops of blood, and also the orange itself being a blood orange. All of this basically hints towards the nature of Dexter Morgan himself. He is a serial killer trying to mask his murderous activities with a normal life, which includes him waking up and following a morning routine. And all the slicing of oranges and grinding of coffee beans signify Dexter's urges to kill, which preoccupy his mind every single day.
Don't forget, tell the universe what you need.
I really need to kill somebody.
I mean, you can also take this a step further and insinuate that, just like the intro for The Sopranos, Dexter could be waking up after a whole night of killing and dumping bodies in the ocean, and now he's just waking up in the morning like nothing happened. But the thing is, background information in opening sequences don't always come in the form of a linear sequence like The Sopranos or Dexter, but it can also be shown through montages. One of my favorites has to be the original Daredevil intro. I mean, what can I say about it? This is definitely one of the best intros ever made. Everything about it shows why this show is so amazing in the first place. The red visuals giving off a blood-soaked look reflects Matt Murdock's desire to let the devil out, just like how he soaks his own fists in criminals' blood every night. And we are shown many objects which form a part of Matt's life, such as Lady Justice, conveying Matt's lawyer life, iconic models of New York City architecture which Matt deeply loves, as well as a Catholic church with a weeping angel in front of it, conveying Matt's Catholic faith and guilt. And these are all pretty much like some of the main themes which are delved in the show. And tying all of this with a simple piano score consisting of arpeggios, which kind of reminds the viewer of Matt's chaotic double life.
How many fingers am I holding up?
One.
Another intro which actually reminds me a lot of the Daredevil one is Hannibal. Similar to Daredevil, Hannibal's intro uses a lot of flowing blood-type visuals, which consist of the main character's faces looking like ice sculptures, but instead with blood. This obviously indicates the sinister theme and the murderous nature surrounding the show, especially how all of these characters deal with serial killers. But combining all of that with a clean white backdrop is actually used to reflect Hannibal Lecter's sense of cleanliness and attention to detail, which is a small detail when you look at it at first, but the more you study Hannibal Lecter's character, the more you realize how cautious he is.
Nothing here is vegetarian. Bon appetit.
Earlier, I mentioned Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I find that show's intro quite interesting because not only it introduces the character of Aang, who is the main protagonist, but it also gives off vital information about the world of Avatar. It's an intro which is so well written that it gives you everything you need to know about this world and the events which lead up to the main story of the show. And even though it's a narration, it's made and said yet in a way that it has a kind of rhythm to it, and after watching it multiple times, you end up remembering it all from start to finish without even wanting to. It tells you how big and large this world is and how it has spanned a mythos of over hundreds of years, giving a sense of large scale that this show has to offer. And speaking of, scale is also a really important element in TV intros, especially when it comes to shows which involve huge worlds with tons of lore and history, giving it that sense of grandiosity that it deserves. I used Avatar: The Last Airbender earlier, but another prime example of that is obviously Game of Thrones. Undoubtedly one of the most iconic intros of all time, Game of Thrones brilliantly welcomes the viewer to the rich, sprawling world of Westeros and the other lands. It does this very interestingly by making it look like it's on a map, where we get to see most of the famous landmarks and houses, such as King's Landing, Winterfell, and the Wall. And when these places are shown, they're made to look like they're a part of some mechanical model where the cities themselves erect from the map, while credits of cast members who belong to these houses show up. The way that the camera pans around the map also gives a sense of scale and distance, where it's basically telling us that this is a huge world spanning thousands of miles with a variety of different climates, like the sunny streets of King's Landing to the icy cold weather at the Wall. And all of this is shown with an iconic theme which perfectly encapsulates the sense of grandiosity of Game of Thrones, tying it all up into one tremendous intro. And that's another thing I have to touch up on, that being the music. Almost every opening sequence has a theme song which is designed around it, and typically shows either have an original main theme song specifically made for the show, or else they might have a needle drop and use licensed music, which usually coincides with the show's tone. And there's no right or wrong, like it's not a mandate that every single show should have an original theme song. Some of the most iconic shows use licensed music and are as instantly recognizable. And obviously one of the most memorable needle drop intros in recent years for me has to be Peacemaker, which is the whole reason why I made this video. When the first season of Peacemaker released back in 2022, one of the most captivating things which came out of it was the opening intro of the show. It features a spontaneous dance sequence from the cast members, which accompany the song Do You Wanna Taste It by Wigwam. This caught everybody off guard the first time it came out due to how unconventional and absurd it was. Having a full-on dance choreography with deadpan faces was honestly really weird, but actually surprising to see, and in my opinion, it has become one of the most rewatchable intros of all time. The music combined with the dance and the set design really just tells you all you need about this show. It's funny, irreverent, unconventional, and daring. The song choice itself is also very deliberate, as explained by James Gunn himself. It describes the impulsive yet vulnerable nature of Christopher Smith, as well as being a great way to introduce the viewer to the chaotic events that go down in season 1 of Peacemaker. And fast forward to 2025, they did the exact same thing recently with season 2, where it came out swinging, but this time with a brand new song and dance choreography. This change of music was also a very deliberate choice, as it tells the viewer that this season is going to be tonally different from the first one. Oh Lord by Foxy Shazam gives off a very dramatic and melody-heavy vibe, with the whole song feeling like a journey, having highs and lows until it ends with an explosive chorus and the cast lying on top of each other. And what has made the Peacemaker Season 2 intro so popular is its integration with cold opens in the episodes. For some reason, the sequence opens almost every time there's some wacky and traumatizing stuff that goes down in the cold opens. They even did this in Season 1, but it has been way more prominent in Season 2.
You killed your brother! You okay in there?
And also, the most famous one is probably the quick cut montage of Rick Flag and the Suicide Squad, which then cuts instantly to the open. And from these, a plethora of people making similar intros have blown up online, where they grab clips from other shows and movies, which are then followed by the intro. And why am I saying this? Because it leads back to the main point of music choice. Because I think what makes this sort of whole concept so good actually comes from the song itself, where it opens up with a trumpet, which almost gives like a sense of like, oh shit, something deeply traumatizing just happened and it's gonna stick for the rest of my life. But having a changing intro like in Peacemaker is actually a trope which is more common than you might think in TV shows. Other than changing the music choice, intros can have slight little visual changes in them which give hints of progress of the overall show. One of my favorites, for example, is The Walking Dead, where each season the intro sequence always has a sort of increasingly deteriorating state, especially with how the title card becomes more and more decayed with each passing season. Another amazing intro which utilizes this slight change is famously Better Call Saul. Even though Better Call Saul's intro is quite short, like it's a few seconds long, it makes the most out of it by making a highly stylistic sequence to show to the viewer how everything is becoming more and more corrupted as the story goes on. This sense of corruption directly reflects Saul's shift in character, where he himself becomes corrupt by the end. And throughout the show, the intro changes slightly almost every single episode, with parts of it becoming desaturated and each of those parts become more and more frequent in the later seasons. Eventually, in season 6, the intro becomes fully corrupted, as not only is it completely in black and white, but the song is highly distorted as well, with the main sequence failing to play by the very end of the show. Now, we could keep going on and on about talking about different intros and how they manage to perfectly introduce and represent the show, but these are a few examples which, in my opinion, are a testament as to why such intros are so important to watch. I mean, yeah, it's not like a game changer or anything. Like, if you enjoy Better Call Saul, you're not gonna hate it because you didn't watch the intros, but it's a really cool detail which will enhance the overall experience of watching the show. And it actually makes you appreciate the attention to detail that the creators behind it gave it. And let's be honest, you wouldn't notice these little changes otherwise if you skip it every single time. Without a doubt, streaming has changed TV forever. Not only with the way we consume it, but also with the way things are made. The main draw that streaming services have is that they offer a huge selection in what you can watch anytime, anywhere. And even more so, every time a new episode from a show comes out, you can watch it at any time you want, rather than having to watch it at a scheduled time like on cable, which has completely revolutionized the way that TV shows are being released. In fact, streaming services and production companies have been experimenting with different release schedules. I mean, yeah, you still have the usual single weekly releases, but there have been others which prove to be quite successful. One of the most popular ones is definitely the Netflix binge model, where they just dump an entire season of television on one day. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that streaming services like Netflix, HBO Max have given viewers tons and tons of options, which people have at their fingertips. And with the rise of such streaming services, also came the rise of binge culture. This is where someone watches multiple episodes of a TV show at one go, to the point where they can finish an entire season in one day. And from this binge culture, a bunch of new viewer trends have risen, including skipping intros. Back in 2017, Netflix made a study where they realized that a lot of viewers were beginning to manually skip TV intros by using the fast forward button. This prompted Netflix to introduce the skip intro button, which was immediately met with praise as people can now skip ahead and just continue watching the show normally. And it was reported that by 2022, this button had been pressed 136 million times, which Netflix actually equates that to 195 years of saved time. Now, even though people mostly see this as an overall net positive, for me, it begs the question, why are intros being skipped in the first place? Because yeah, it does save quite a lot of time for viewers when binging a show, especially when the intro is over a minute long and doesn't really change. And over the years, production studios have noticed the trend of people now not bothering to watch long intros, and they have responded. And you can see this response as a lot of shows are now opting to have very short intros. This is where I was talking about how streaming has changed the way that TV is being made. But I feel like studios and creatives have been studying this and are trying to find ways to make intros where people refrain from skipping. And apart from making intros which are short, they've actually recognized that they should make ones which are flowing with episodes. Rather than simply having a standalone sequence, intros are now being integrated within scripts to have a sense of connectivity between the cold open and the intro itself. And I feel like this is a really cool technique where intros are now being integrated with cold opens. Two famous examples that I can think of right now is Barry and Invincible, where for Invincible, for example, it's actually a running gag to have an intro title card anybody says the name Invincible. The same thing is done in Barry at multiple different points in the show, but that one intro in season 2 is just, it's so good. It's perfect.
I said, did you grow up out here, Bobby?
My name is...
What's so great about this style of intro is that it actually allows for some good change and variety to open up an episode, as they come at points which the viewer never really expects it to, which at the same time makes it very hard for viewers to skip, which kind of achieves the goal of not pressing that skip button. Sometimes shows even opt to have no intro at all, just a simple title card with no musical sequence whatsoever. Shows like The Boys do this, and even The Bear, where it randomly decides to have a title card every other episode or so. And I feel like a lot of these changes just go to show that these are simply Hollywood's reaction to what the viewers are doing. They're saying that a lot of people are skipping long intros, so they're choosing to make shorter ones. And to be honest, I wouldn't even say that this comes out of a sense of laziness that they don't want to do long intros anymore, but I think it's actually a great challenge to the creators of these shows to be more creative with the intros. By making these connections with the overall episodes, it gives that sense of flow between the opening scene, the intro, and the rest of the episode. And viewers really appreciate that detail overall. They recognize that there's an extra effort in the script writing and editing of the show, which again enhances the quality of the overall series. Obviously though, such short intros do end up limiting the amount of stuff that is shown in them. Like, you're not gonna have the same amount of detail in a short intro like Barry's when compared to an intro such as The Sopranos, where you get to see a part of Tony's life every single episode. And you're also not gonna have the cool stylistic montages like Daredevil and The Walking Dead. But at the same time, short intros have their own sense of flair to them. They're unique in their own way, just like the other types of intros that I've been mentioning in the past couple minutes. And just like what makes them special, these short ones have benefits to them that the others don't, such as the ability to have it seamlessly flow with the rest of the episode, which is much harder to do with longer intros. And even more so, viewers are less likely to skip a short intro rather than a 1:30 long one. But even more so, you can still have the evolving intro like I mentioned before with the short ones, which is what Invincible and Better Call Saul do extremely well. To tie everything up, I want to go back to recognizing the whole reason as to why TV shows have intros in the first place. I feel like opening sequences are there to basically give a show a sense of identity. It's there to establish a brand and uniqueness, which separates it from other TV shows. I like to think of it as a type of ID card. You know, like when you go to a bar and they ask for ID, it's basically that.
McLovin?
Yeah, I was between that and Muhammad.
Why the fuck would it be between that and Muhammad?
The intro is there essentially to serve as a presentation to display everything that the show itself revolves around in a few minutes or even seconds. But ultimately, the amount of stuff that an intro shows depends on the intention that the creators have for that sequence. I mean, realistically, sometimes showing too much in an intro can be too overwhelming or even unnecessary. Like, not every single show needs a full-on minute-and-a-half sequence showing the sprawling world and its characters. But sometimes a simple title card with a catchy riff is enough to attract viewers and introduce them to the show. And like I've stated before, the skip intro button was not necessarily an overall negative when it comes to opening sequences, but rather I believe it ultimately turned as a positive since creatives are now getting more and more creative with their intros. Now, obviously, I couldn't talk about every single intro in existence because this video would never end. I basically talked about the ones that I personally really enjoyed the most and has stood out to me over the test of time. But I know that there are so many other intros to draw great examples from, and I want to know, write down in the comments below, what is your favorite TV intro that you like to watch over and over again from time to time? Now, a lot of people ask, do I think that short intros will be the death of long ones? No. In fact, a lot of different shows are still creating and designing long intros, such as The Last of Us, Peacemaker, and so many other ones. And I see a lot of discourse online that TV intros have become sort of like a lost art, but personally, I don't think that. I believe that, if anything, they've only gotten more clever.